So welcome to another episode of the More People podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Fitzmaurice, CEO at MorePeople. My guest in this episode is Adam White. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Adam is Head of Agriculture for Barclays.
Correct, yes.
Excellent. So, lots to talk about today. But before we get started, keen to maybe have a small intro from you for people who don't know you.
Yes.
I'll give you one breath, maybe two.
Okay.
To sum up who you are and your role.
So Adam White, I'm Head of Agriculture for Barclays UK, as you say. We look after around 1 in 5 farms in the UK, working with farmers on all aspects of their business in terms of growing and thriving. So lots and lots of areas that we touch on in terms of agriculture and the food sector.
So no pressure, but as the finance man invited onto this podcast,
Yes.
You've brought your crystal ball, perhaps.
I've polished it.
Yeah. We're not going to put you under too much pressure and talk about where interest rates are going to go or what the next government's going to do, but that's the million-dollar question, I'm guessing, on lots of people's minds.
Yes. Well, the answer I always give, Andrew, is if I knew I wouldn't be here, I would be on a beach somewhere in Barbados. So I think the challenge is, and this is a particular challenge for the food sector, is the impact of global events or black swan events.
Yep.
And there are so many of them. And if you think back to 2016, the number we've seen over the last 8 years is just unheard of. So that's the bit that nobody can forecast is what does that look like? What happens next?
It's almost tiresome, isn't it? I think we've had lots of our exec dinners, we've had the conversation about what is the next problem and how long is it going to be till we run into it, and it feels like over the last half a dozen years it's been one every 5 minutes.
Yeah, but very often businesses in this sector, farmers and food producers alike, are very, very good at adapting and finding ways around things. And that's one of the keys to any successful business at the minute is agility, is just being able to test and learn, adapt and change with the circumstances, because nobody knows what tomorrow looks like.
No, 100%. I think, one of the massive benefits of this industry, the thing we can be collectively proud of is how resilient people are and
Absolutely.
how good they are at turning those challenges into opportunities. There's always something new going on, whether it's weather, transport, energy, foreign exchange, who knows? There's always going to be something, but generally a good industry to turn it around.
Absolutely. And I've said this in the past in events that I've spoken at, is if you took a farmer, a lot of people in the food sector, and put them into tech, they would be doing the same job in terms of being an entrepreneur. The things that they're involved in, if you think about what you have to be involved in the food supply chain, it's just insane. And it's exactly what a founder of a company would be involved in. So there is a huge amount of resilience and a huge amount of talent in this industry.
One of the things I was keen to talk to you about was the Barclays Eagle Lab. So it's not something I know a huge amount about, but from what I can gather, there's a hefty amount of research and development going into future tech and what could be done. It was a working farm as well, right?
Yes, so in Lincoln, we've got the partnership with the University of Lincoln. So there is businesses there that are doing research on the future technology for the sector. Eagle Labs is all about how do we connect entrepreneurs with businesses? So how do we help them to find financing, help them to get finance ready, working with partners like the University of Lincoln to be able to give them an environment in which to do that and to get support. So the Lincoln Lab's a really good example. We've just opened a new lab in Cambridge, which has reduced its carbon footprint significantly. It's got solar panels. It's been completely retrofitted to be a place that showcases what you can do in the tech sector. So there's lots of opportunity there to connect the food sector with entrepreneurs, and instead of an entrepreneur coming up with an idea and then somebody in the food supply chain going, well, that's never going to work. It's like, how do you do that at an earlier stage? And that's one of the things that we're focused on in Eagle Labs.
Is it a 360-degree service? Do you do everything for your customers, or is it skewed towards investment planning, future technology? Where does the time go?
It's everything. So we've got a team of relationship managers and directors across the UK. They'll work with farmers locally. Some of that day-to-day banking stuff inevitably comes up in a conversation, as you'll know, as a small business owner and a CEO. But it's really about guiding, understanding what's happening in the sector, where the trends are, and farming is quite an isolated experience. It's not a role where you're very often out talking to people like you and I would get the opportunity to. So what we want to do is bring in ideas into those meetings and get farmers and the supply chain thinking about things that they can do differently. And sometimes it's just sharing best practice. Like, did you know so and so over there is doing this?
Are people pretty forthcoming with sharing technological advantage and things that are at the forefront, or are people more cagey and holding back on the next best secret?
It depends who you speak to. Some are quite cagey. Some like to keep it as a competitive advantage. Some are just, there are some fantastic farmers who will talk about everything they're doing. They'll be completely transparent because they want to support the sector to progress. So it depends, but there are enough of them that you can really create some interest. Yeah.
Talking trends, when it comes to what you've seen evolve over the last 12, 13 years, has it been about robotics, automation? I'm guessing things like that have become this, elusive next thing that people want to spend money on to crack some sort of competitive advantage. Reduction in labour, in drive for efficiencies. Is that a fair reflection of what you've seen?
It is, but I think it's for specific types of farms. So the way that we look at farming in the UK is there's three types of farms. So you'll have landed estates, which are very, very big estates, typically a country house. So imagine Burley just up the road. That's what we would call a landed estate. And they're very, very diverse businesses. They will get involved in, things like rewilding, those types of things. You've then got this really, really vital part of UK agriculture, which is the tech farmers. And they are just fantastic at producing food in a really, really efficient way, mainly cost efficiency. Those are the farmers that will be looking for technology solutions. Like, what can I do next? How can I improve my processes? How can I improve what I'm producing quicker? And a lot of their relationships will be with supply chains, so with supermarkets working together to come to those solutions. And those are the ones that are really at the forefront of technology. One of the things we always say is, we talk about GPS tracking. We've had that on combines for 20, 30 years. It's not a new thing, but where we are seeing improvements is things like potato grading and how can you automate processes. The only area that I've come across, which is parsnips. Apparently you can't automate the sorting of parsnips. There's no way of doing that. So if any entrepreneurs have got any ideas on that, then I know a few farmers who'd be interested. But then the final part is this kind of nature farmer, which are typically medium-sized farms. They'll be doing things like biodiversity net gain on farm, still producing food, but doing it in a really sustainable and natural way. But the tech farmers have definitely got some interest there.
So a lot of what's going on in farming and food production is pretty sophisticated stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
And farms in general, perhaps culturally, have a reputation of being a bit more old-fashioned, a bit slow to adopt things from time to time. But by the sounds of things, this is moving forwards apace.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's always extremes. So you're always going to have a sort of kaleidoscope of different types of farms. But I am extremely positive for the sector. I think there is some really exciting things going on. And even last week, I was up north on a farm that's now set up a company that's producing gelato in the UK using their organic milk, some fantastic cheese that they produce, and they're working with really large companies to work out how do they get that in front of consumers, because it's something that consumers are interested in. Healthy, sustainable food certainly has a premium attached to it. And if you're a farmer, you're looking for, how do I grow my premiums? How do I grow my margins? So doing these things has a positive on the bottom line.
I mean, the UK is, I think, still the envy of a lot of the rest of the world in terms of how sophisticated its food supply chain actually is. As an island nation, we should be able to do a lot more than we are doing and rely a lot less on imports and look after ourselves a bit better. So if we can see things like that happen, then that can only be a good thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And producing food that we typically wouldn't. I think there is an opportunity, and we've been to a number of dinners where we've talked to horticulture businesses down in the south. And it's just making the economics work there. Then on top of that, you've got things like vertical farming, which is very nascent at the moment, and obviously the impact of energy on those particular farms is quite significant. But there will be those future technology trends that perhaps change the way that we produce food in the UK. And we saw that last year when we saw the issue with tomatoes coming in from Spain and some of the impacts there. So if we can grow those in the UK, that's an opportunity for entrepreneurs and farmers to change what they're doing on farm and improve their bottom line.
100%. I think controlling our own supply chains, as well as thinking about resources, whether it's water, the carbon footprint, the CO2, the heat, that's involved to do these things, and weighing them against the benefits of importing them from North Africa. If we can look after it ourselves and still do it economically with lesser impact on the environment, that can only be a win-win.
It stops that transportation, yeah, and it's always there when you need it.
Talking a bit about talent and the nature of the industry and where it is in terms of the aging population or talent being attracted into the sector. You work for a big brand. Most people on the street would know the brand,
Yes.
perhaps not the agricultural elements of the business.
No.
But how are you finding the challenge for attracting talent into your space?
I think it's always challenging. I think there is, particularly the generation now that are leaving university, are looking for purpose-driven roles. That's certainly something we see more of. So that's actually a boon for my business, because I've got people queuing at my doors to work in agriculture, because
It's a morally nice thing to do.
it's a morally nice thing, and it's an exciting industry. It's whether you're interested in technology or nature or food or supply chains, there's something that appeals to everybody. So it's appealing to that. What else is the job other than just a paycheck? And so it's quite easy for me to find people. A huge amount of my talent comes from internally, so people will join Barclays, train in a role, understand the systems, and then move into more senior roles working with farmers. So, but there is certainly that's a differentiator, I think, for a lot of brands, particularly in the food sector, because we all look at the standard compensation, but if you can give that moral, that sort of sense of purpose to somebody, that's a big part of job enjoyment, and that's something that, yeah, if you can get passionate about that, it makes your job easier, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah, I think that idea, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life.
Exactly. Yeah.
It does feel a little bit like that's where the industry's going. It'll be tested over the course of time, but the idea that people are not just looking for a paycheck, they're looking for everything else that goes with it, whether it's values,
Yeah.
triple bottom line, the carbon elements and the sustainability, the CSR elements of different businesses, and to what extent they put those at the forefront of their hiring processes. So it's not just come and work for Barclays, it's the biggest paycheck.
No, it's not. It's finding where that is. And I've got I was on a Zoom call or a Teams call with a colleague the other day who doesn't typically talk to farmers, so they support us. And she had a picture of an egg producer that we'd financed on her fridge. And she said, and I look at that, and it sort of reminds me every day when I'm having a bad day, I look at that and go, that's what my job means. I've now helped that customer to produce all of these eggs, build this fantastic unit. And it's just that sense of purpose. And I find myself doing it. I'll go into a supermarket and go, oh, I know them. That's really cool. That's, we helped them to go on that journey to do that.
Yeah, I think that sense of pride that you're working in something tangible. It's not just derivatives and junk bonds on a spreadsheet. It's got a physical,
definitely not.
A physical human value to it that perhaps over recent years, with what's gone on in the world, we're valuing that probably more than we ever used to.
Absolutely.
One question to finish on that we're asking all of our guests is, what one piece of advice would you give to your 24-year-old self? What do you wish you knew then that you know now?
I would say, it's probably something as you get older, is just seek out as many opinions as you can. And when you're 24, you think you know everything, don't you? You think you know the world and how to put it right. But just listen to people, and that's one of the fantastic parts of my job is, I'm with a farmer last week. I'm here today. I'm with a farmer tomorrow, a different type of farmer, and I'll just listen and absorb and learn from what they're telling you. And I think that's so important as you're building your career out. Is don't think you know the answer. Don't think that's the best thing for me, because if I'd have done that, I would never have ended up back in agriculture, because I would have gone, well, I can't do that. I think the other thing I would do, and I don't know if you experienced this, but when I came out of university, I was like, right, that's it, I'm done. I never want to do that again. It's good fun for 3 years, but and I've done a number of qualifications since then, and I think you've got to keep consistently learning. And a boss said to me recently, there's this piece between confidence and arrogance, and he said the moment you know that you're being arrogant is when you're not moving forward, when you're not developing yourself, when you sat where you are and you go in, I know everything, and I'm just gonna carry on doing that. If you're learning, you're moving forward. So always learn, always listen.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here. Thank you.
Appreciate it.